I'd like to call the Butte-Silver Council of Commissioners regular meeting for Wednesday, May 17th, 2023 to order. Please have roll call.
10 present, 2 absent.
10 present, 2 absent. Please note that Commissioner Mankins and Commissioner Anderson are excused from tonight, and Commissioner Anderson wanted to let everyone know that he was out of surgery and doing good, and so wanted to reassure everybody with that. So moving on to the prayer and the pledge, Commissioner Sorich, could you please lead us?
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, fellow commissioners. Almighty God, we implore you, look upon us and guide us this night as we make decisions which will greatly affect our community of Butte-Silver. Direct our thoughts, words, and deeds so that we please you and best serve our fellow citizens. Amen. Pledge.
Next, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes for the May 3rd, 2023 regular meeting. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move to approve the minutes from the May 3rd, 2023 regular meeting.
We have a motion and a second. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
10 yea, 0 nay.
10 yeas, 0 nay. Motion passes. Moving on, we don't have any items that are not addressed on the agenda tonight, so I'll be real quick on the Chief Executive's report. I think we got a pretty full agenda tonight and a full house, so we'll move along. We got out of the legislative session. I've been going to a few meetings recently just to talk about the effects of how, the effects of the bills that were passed and things that happened at the legislative session. There wasn't that much issues that we've had. There's going to be some issues definitely that will affect our planning and zoning and things like that, but nothing that we can't work with, and we're paying attention to all of the infrastructure monies and things that are coming out within Butte-Silver, and so are within our communities, I should say. And so we're paying close attention to that. We're going to make sure that we are trying to leverage the money that is available from the state for the communities. There are some things that we need to address. House Bill 355, once again, because we're a consolidated government, has kind of left us out of some of that funding, but we're going to be working with the state to try to get that corrected as well. So, but for the most part, it's nice to see the sunshine. It's nice to have a little bit of spring starting, and it's kind of crazy that we're talking about smoke already too, though. So let's pray that it doesn't come from our side of things and for our forests as well. So anyhow, I'm going to close the Chief Executive's report, and we're going to move on to public comment on any item that is on tonight's agenda. If you're going to speak at the public hearing, though, you'll have time for that, so that will be at the time for the public hearing. So if you're here to speak about the public hearing, you can wait to speak at that time. So this would be on any other item on the agenda tonight that you would like to speak on. So if you'd like to speak on any item on the agenda, come forward, state your name, address, and the item that you'd like to speak on. Seeing none, then we're going to move on to, I'm going to move one item number 25 out of the consent agenda, and I'm going to move it up for action to begin with here. So it's item number 25, if I can get to it here. Communication number 2023-278, Ed Lesser, Butte-Silver Sheriff, requesting Council of Commissioners concurrence in appointing the following police officers: Blake Krause, Tyler Doherty, Connor Miller, Joshua Robinson to the Butte-Silver Law Enforcement as full-time confirmed officers. Sheriff Lester, I'll give you some time to speak first.
Mr. Chief Executive, members of the council, for the record, my name is Ed Lester. I'm the sheriff here in Butte-Silver. Tonight I bring before you 4 officers who have completed their probationary periods I will call them up here so they can stand behind me, and you'll see that they're mostly much taller than I am. Blake Kraus, Tyler Doherty, Connor Miller, and Josh Robinson. These four gentlemen have completed their probationary period, and it's not an accident when you become a police officer here in Butte-Silver Bow. There's a long process to get hired, consisting of physical fitness testing, academic testing, interviews with the police commission, and that's all before you even see the sheriff. And then there's an interview process with the sheriff's department, and if you're selected, you will attend the Montana Law Enforcement Academy for 12 weeks. You'll have a 1-year probationary period with our department and our training officers, and also a 12-week field training program. And these officers have completed that gauntlet of challenges and done an outstanding job. And so it's important to me, it's an honor for me to be here tonight to recommend these gentlemen for confirmation as full-time members of the sheriff's department, or the police department, excuse me. 34 years ago, I was confirmed as a police officer here in Butte-Silver Bow. And so, and I don't say that because that's a big accomplishment. We'll get to that in a few years when I retire, and then we can have a beer and celebrate that. But what I mean by that is 34 years from now, I hope these four gentlemen are still keeping our community safe. And that's a long time. And so the legacy that I leave as a sheriff, whenever that time is when I leave, is important to me, that I hire quality people and leave the department in the best hands that I possibly can. So that 34 years from now, you see these folks who here today are the leadership of the department and have been keeping our community safe long past my time at the Crest Nursing Home and probably out into Holy Cross. So that's how important it is to me that we hire the best people and evaluate them for a 1-year process before we confirm them. And so that's why I ask for your concurrence tonight to confirm these four gentlemen as police officers full-time for Butte-Silver Bow. Again, their names are Blake Kraus, Tyler Doherty, Connor Miller, and Josh Robinson.
Thank you, Sheriff Lesser. So what we'll do is we'll take action on this, and then we'll give the commissioners an opportunity to speak if they would like, and then we'll move forward. So would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion. I'll be honored to make this motion, Chief Executive. I move to confirm and concur and place on file communication number 2023-278.
We have a motion and a second to concur and place on file our communication number 2023-278. Now, is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? I think we're missing Commissioner Frederickson. Yeah. There we go. And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
10 yea, 0 nay.
10 yea, 0 nay. Motion passes. Motion passes. We want to congratulate you all and thank you for being. Gentlemen, good luck, and thank you for choosing to be law enforcement officers here in Butte-Silver Bow. All right. We'll let the families go out and take pictures if you want. So moving back to Section 1, bid openings, public hearings, and/or presentations. We have 2 public hearings tonight. County Attorney Joyce, do we have proof of publication?
Mr. Chief Executive, there is proof of publication for both public hearings, and both appear to be in order.
Thank you, County Attorney Joyce. Our first communication is communication number 2023-172, Karen Malogny, Butte-Silver Bow Health Officer, requesting Council of Commissioners approval to hold a public hearing on May 17, 2023 for the purpose of amending the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget to allow for increased expenditures of unanticipated revenue resulting from collection of fees in the immunization program. Is Director Malogny here? do not see her. So I guess I will speak to this. This is just, I believe, grant funding for the immunization program that is Director Gleason.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioners, this actually could have been pulled from the agenda. You held this public hearing related to these funds on May 3rd, I believe.
Okay, thank you. So that was to be pulled. So we have one public hearing. So, okay, we'll move on to our second public hearing. Communication number 2022-233, Elizabeth Osborne, Butte-Silver Bow Senior Planner, requesting Council of Commissioners approval to hold a public hearing on May 17th, 2023 for the Blacktail Creek Major Subdivision. Each proposed lot is between 1 to 2 acres in size and shall be serviced by individual well and septic systems. Ms. Osborne.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher, members of the council. I have some slides tonight just to give everybody some more information about this subdivision. So this is a preliminary plat for the Blacktail Creek Major Subdivision, which proposes to create 11 lots. Each lot is between 1 and 2 acres in size. The application variance request to the Parks and Open Space section of the subdivision regs, which I'll talk a little bit about in a few slides. And last week, the Planning Board heard this same presentation, and they approved a motion to recommend that the council recommend approval of the preliminary plat 4-3. But this is just a public hearing tonight. There's no action requested. So the next slide is some pictures. Here's an aerial. And here's another. That's mostly Warren Heights to the east. And here's the preliminary plat. This is the comprehensive plan place type, which for this lot in particular is suburban residential, but there's some rural residential farther to the south and some working lands to the west. And I'll also note that this land is not zoned, but the applicant's proposing some covenants that somewhat mimic zoning, so they'd like it to be single-family homes only, no trailers, no outdoor storage, things like that. Some more pictures. Can you hear me? Is that better? Okay. And so this road that you see in the middle is an unimproved road right now, but it'll be brought up to county standards if the subdivision were to go through. Here's another aerial image. And here's one with some of the lot lines that are proposed drawn on there. So the subdivision was advertised in the Montana Standard by certified mail to each adjacent property owner and by some sandwich boards at the site, and that's how we usually advertise for major subdivisions. The Montana Code annotated lists the primary criteria for which to review subdivisions. Those are all covered in the staff report, but I'll just go over the most relevant in the presentation. The DEQ reviews well, septic, and stormwater plans, but I'll also talk a little bit about them. And this is just a public hearing, so there's no action requested tonight. So the first review criteria is effects on local services. The subdivision regulations require that new lots created by subdivision would connect to municipal services, but since there are none here, wells and septics are proposed for each lot. The subdivision could be accessed by existing road networks. The existing interior road would be improved to county standards, and it would be a private road with a public road easement, and it would be maintained by an HOA. All new driveways would have to be to that interior road so they couldn't connect to Continental or Passmore Canyon or any of the other roads. Here's just another map showing new homes that have gone in the area since 2014. Another review criteria is effects on natural environment. Nitrate levels are known to be elevated in this area, and groundwater availability has been studied by the Montana Bureau of Mines and Geology and by the applicant. It's still currently being studied too. And a noxious weed management plan has been provided, and that'll need to be approved by the weed board. So more about natural environment. There was a FEMA floodplain zone A on this property, and what the zone A means is that when FEMA did the study that created the maps, there wasn't elevation data to create this boundary. So the boundary that you see on the left doesn't match the topography on the ground. So what the applicant did, and what any subdivider would have to do if this were the case, is do a detailed study to show the actual elevation of the 100-year floodplain. And so that's on the right. You can see that the floodplain boundary actually isn't on the property line. Effects on public health and safety. So like I mentioned, the DEQ is responsible for reviewing the well, septic, and stormwater plans for all major subdivisions. Butte-Silver wouldn't approve a final plat without DEQ approval. We want to be sure that there's adequate water, and not only for the new possible residents, but that it wouldn't inhibit the water use of existing residents in the area. The COSA, which is what the application to DEQ is called, is currently in review. The subdivision is within the Butte-Silver Police and Fire District, and the volunteer fire districts that would respond to an emergency here are Home, Atherton, and Terra Verde. And like I mentioned, the road would be brought up to county standards, and it would be named, and the naming conventions that we have are to promote efficiency of emergency response. So I have a slide here about nitrates, and the next one is about water, because there's some concern with them in the area, and I want to explain what's been reviewed and what's being reviewed. So early in the 2000s, subdividing lots of this size wouldn't have been realistic because there wasn't the technology for septic systems to make that safe. But since then, these treatment technologies have developed, which does make it feasible, and they're technically called level 2 septic systems, and they result in no increase in nitrate concentrations. The subdivider also proposes that wells be treated and tested yearly. The wells and septics proposed in the subdivision are less dense than the existing wells in earlier subdivisions here. And I know this map is small, but the groundwater flow direction in this area is to the northwest. So that means that the groundwater flows in the direction away from the existing homes. So DEQ reviews for water quantity and dependability. So how much water is available and for how long can you rely on that amount of water? The DEQ is aware of issues in this area in the past, such as wells drying up, and so they're reviewing very carefully. And any comments that we receive tonight, we forward to the DEQ. The DNRC limits water rights, and the existing subdivisions in the area, I don't believe, are restricted by water rights. But these new proposed lots would be, so they could have very little irrigation area, and I think it also limits the number of bedrooms that a house can have. So before I finish, I wanted to talk a little bit about the process from here on out. And there was some concern at the planning board meeting that maybe this was jumping the gun, but the subdivision regulations say that for a subdivision that would create one or more parcels containing less than 20 acres, the subdivider shall obtain approval by DEQ as a condition of the plat. So we're actually required to condition on the preliminary plat that before final plat, DEQ approval will be obtained. Additionally, the governing body, like today, will hear public comment, and this is the time for that because we forward those comments to the DEQ. So the DEQ incorporates those comments into their review, and that's why we have public comment at this stage. And then I'll actually talk about the trail too before I finish. So major subdivisions are required to provide either parkland dedication, which is a percentage of the total acreage being subdivided, and in this case, it would be about 0.83 acres. Instead of that, you can also propose to do a cash in lieu, so that would be just the cash amount equivalent to that amount of land. But the Parks and Rec Board said they didn't prefer either because we have a lot of little pieces of land already that resulted from subdivision, and you have to use that money in a park nearby, and they said there wasn't a park nearby for which they could use those funds. So on March 17th, the Parks and Rec Board approved a trail proposal instead. So this would be a paved pedestrian trail. That yellow line represents where it would be on the west side of the lot. And this also satisfies a goal of the Parks and Rec plan, which was just adopted, to create connectivity between town and Thompson Park. Easements and access are also reviewed for subdivisions. There's a 60-foot right-of-way easement along the road that would be improved, and that's where Northwestern Energy has said they'll put their utilities. Easements are also included on the side and rear of lot lines. And then there are 2 access points required for major subdivisions. So in this case, that's Mountain View Drive and Passmore Canyon Road. And the road would be improved, named, and maintained by an HOA. So this is more for the planning board, but planning board recommended approval with the conditions in the staff report. And there's no action required to be taken by you tonight, but I wanted to let you know that that was their decision last week. And we have the applicant here for any questions that you might have. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Osborne. So tonight, as we go through the public hearing process, because we probably have a number of people that want to speak today, I'm going to limit you to 3 minutes. So there'll be a signal here to kind of let you know where you're at, and it'll count down for you. When it hits yellow, you have about a minute left, and then that allows you to do that. So, so any questions of commissioners before we? Commissioner Sorich.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Just a real quick one. Elizabeth, you're talking about nitrates and it's going to be real limited. Are they going to have some sort of monitoring system so it doesn't go into the creek? Or is there anything to that? Does DEQ require that?
Commissioner Sorich, Ms. Osborne.
Mr. Chief Executive, Mr. Sorich. So the type of septic systems that are proposed for the subdivision create effluent or release effluent that is no higher than the existing nitrates in the ground. So any new septics that would be put here wouldn't increase the nitrates in the area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. So we'll move forward, and we will open the public hearing. I'll call for proponents. First call for proponents. Second call for proponents. Yep, go ahead. Come forward. For the record, state your name, address.
My name's Gary Fox. I'm the applicant. I own the property with my wife. Thanks for being here. Thank you, Lila, and the planning department. Like I said, my wife and I own it. I'm a civil engineer in Montana, which is part of the reason why I took this on. This is a tough site. There are some issues with water and sewer and the floodplain. I felt like I was in a position to navigate those issues, and I felt like I feel like I'm a willing, knowledgeable developer for this property. Warren Heights was platted in 1973. This property is listed on that plat as commercial. It's sat vacant since then. There's a road through it. It's unzoned, like Lila said. There's lots of existing information on this property. The Bureau of Mines and Geology did multiple studies on the nitrates and the water availability. We removed the floodplain. We worked with Septic Net and WET, and Steve is here from Septic Net. He can answer questions on the high nitrates. We think that this property is developable. We think it's a good opportunity for low density residential. We're not proposing commercial or storage units or multifamily. We're proposing low density residential. There's access. There's no wetlands. There's no soils issues. there's a lot of things, it's got a lot of things going for this. This is not development on the perimeter of the county. This is kind of infill in a way. We think this meets the housing plan. We think this is thoughtful, safe development. Warren Heights is a great neighborhood. It's an awesome neighborhood. We're just trying to add a couple new lots to it. We're not trying to change the neighborhood. We're just trying to give a couple people an opportunity to live there. We're working with DEQ. It's going to be a long process. They've said that this is a very sensitive site. They understand that. We're working with the same sanitarian and hydrogeologist who did the Homestake Meadow subdivision, which is nearby and it has the same issues. It's in the same aquifer. It's a fractured bedrock aquifer. It does produce, but it produces low. There are some cases of low producing wells. I think you'll hear those tonight from some of the neighbors. We think those are isolated, and we think that in working with DEQ, we can provide the neighbors with assurance that we're not going to affect their wells. Lila mentioned some of the restrictions, covenants, DNRC. We've got a long process to go with DEQ, and we're hoping to take the next step and continue with that process. Thank you. I'm trying to be kind of fast.
You got
I've
about
talked to
30
the
seconds.
Authors of the Bureau of Mines and Geology, John up at the college. We're consulting with him. DEQ, like I said, O'Keefe Drilling has been great to work with. They're really knowledgeable out there. They just drilled a well on our property that produced fine. We did an electroseismic survey of the groundwater that was recommended by planning and by O'Keefe. We've done a lot so far, and I appreciate your time. Thank you. I'd love to talk a little bit more, but
Thank you very much. Okay, so we're on second call for proponents. Please come forward, state your name, address, and
Chief Executive, Council members, I'm Steve Anderson, representing SepticNet, 119920 Rick Jones Way here in Butte. I'm just basically here to kind of answer questions about the septic treatment system. SepticNet is the most advanced level 2 system out there. Lila mentioned level 2 systems. A lot of them are approved for 24 milligram per liter effluent levels coming out. SepticNet is less than 7.5. Drinking water standard's 10. Currently, we're putting out about 4. We just submitted data for the last 4 years to DEQ, and all of our systems are averaging about 4 milligrams per liter total nitrogen coming out. So to answer your question earlier, the level in the water anywhere 10 to 20 out there. So we're putting it back in at 4, so we're not degrading the water. We're actually making it a little bit better. So it's manufactured right here in Butte. This was the area where we decided to start inventing SepticNet back in 2006. So a lot of you guys probably remember they shut down development out there. And so we started researching different technologies and ended up getting 2 patents and everything on this system. We've been putting them in the ground since 2011. We've got about 140 of them in throughout the state, and we have to report to DEQ every year on those. They come with a service and maintenance agreement where we have to go to the system and service it and sample it for basically forever. So, and I'll be in the audience if there's any questions regarding the septic side, and that's basically all I'm here representing. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Anderson. So next, I'll call third and final call for proponents. Seeing none, we'll move to opponents. First call for opponents. So please come forward, state your name, address, and then we'll give you your time.
Yes, Mr. Chief Executive, council members. My name is John Kriskovich. I live at 115 Larkspur Lane. My major concern with the Blacktail Creek Major subdivision is nitrate levels. The first collection date for our property was 4/10/2000. The sample was collected by MSE HKM. Nitrate levels listed on the report sent to us were 8.9 milligrams per liter. The health standard upper limit for nitrates in drinking water is 10 milligrams per liter. The second sample for nitrate analysis was conducted by the Montana Bureau of Mines and Geology on October 16, 2006. Nitrate levels were listed at 9.6 milligrams per liter. In their report, they listed nitrate levels, and the Bureau of Mines and Geology cautioned us that our nitrate levels were close to the upper limit at 10 milligrams per liter. I believe these two mentioned samplings were done as a result of a failed attempt by developers Irene Humber and Don Renz to establish H&R estates in the Warren Heights area. The third sampling for nitrates, for nitrate analysis was done by Marcom Lab Services on August 14, 2018. The sampling was requested by Jackie Blom on behalf of Joan Blom, the property owner of lot number 7 next to ours. Warren Heights, the Bloms were trying to sell a lot at the time and asked if they could draw a water sample, to which we agreed. Our result from Marcom Labs was 15.7 milligrams per liter of nitrate. This number reflects a 76.9% increase in nitrate over a period of 18 years, spanning from 2000 to 2018. These numbers reflect an upward trend that cannot be ignored. I therefore ask the Council of Commissioners to put a hold on this subdivision until nitrate levels in all wells involved in the 2006 Bureau of Mines and Geology study of well nitrate in Warren Heights can once again be revisited in order to reflect current nitrate levels in these wells. I would encourage Mr. Fox to have his well included in such a study, which I'm sure he has already had this studied. And finally, to put into perspective nitrate volume that I can understand, I've distilled 3 gallons of our well water with a yield of 1 ounce. So at 12 gallons, this would be filled right to the top, which would, and it would be on the limit on the scale on this would be right here if I distilled 12 gallons. So that's my major concern here is nitrates, because this subject hasn't been studied since 2018 for us, and a major study in 2006. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kriskovich. Any other opponents? You please come forward. There's no sit. Come, yep. Please say your name and address.
Yes, my name is Julie Riley, and
There you go. Yep, you got it. Yeah.
My name is Julie Reichley. I'm here on behalf of my husband and myself, Howard Reichley. I live at 138 Foxtail Lane, which is in the Warren Heights subdivision south of Butte. I'm an opponent to this subdivision. I have various reasons why. My major concern is we have a very low water table, and our wells are in danger. We have many dry wells in our area, and we are very limited on that. I know that that is all policed and watched by the DNRC. As you all know, water rights in Montana are very different because we live in a rural setting. Obviously, these aren't ranches and farms, but it is devastating if our wells were to dry up, both financially and life-sustaining. Our properties would become worthless, and you know, there's not a lot to do because we do not have the option for city water. I also spoke to the DNRC in the last few days. They did have some aerial photos of the location that were taken in 2001, and they said that they thought because of that, all of the water drainage was going to lawn watering and irrigation. I said, well, a lot's changed in 22 years, so I'd like that to be revisited. Another of my concerns are the proximity of the septic systems near Blacktail Creek, which is an impaired stream listed under the federal impaired stream. So it is the headwaters of the Clark Fork River, so I think that needs to be looked at in conjunction with all of the nitrates and the concerns with the nitrates, as well as adding 11 new homes would increase all of the traffic in the area, more pollution, and it could endanger a lot of our species out there. We have bald eagles, many species that are on the list of protected or endangered, so we would also like to make sure none of that gets impaired as well. Thank you for your time tonight, and I'd appreciate if we could put this on hold until further study and evaluation is completed.
Thank you, Mrs. Reichley. Do we have any other opponents? Please come forward.
Chief Executive Gallagher and Council of Commissioners. My name is Jackie Kriskovich. I live at 115 Larkspur Lane. I would like to address my concerns about the Blacktail Creek major subdivision. I would like to touch on the dangers of high nitrates drinking well water. High levels can turn skin to a bluish or gray color and can cause more serious health effects like headache, weakness, excess heart rate, fatigue, and dizziness. Consuming too much nitrates can affect how blood carries oxygen and can cause blue baby syndrome. Also, the risk of preterm birth increases by 47% when nitrate levels are above 5.5 milligrams per liter. The most glaring issue is neural tube defect when a baby's brain doesn't develop. There is also a risk of colorectal, colon, gastric, and breast cancer, and also thyroid disease. How can we ignore these health facts where more study is necessary, as current nitrate levels throughout Warren Heights are particularly high? Thank you for your time, and I hope you will maybe put a hold on this until more study is done on health and safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kriskovich. Do we have any other opponents? Please come forward.
My name is Zach Schneider. I live at 125 Larkspur Lane. I'm a neighbor of Mr. and Mrs. Kriskovich. I'm up here today in front of you, Mr. Chief Executive, and the Council of Commissioners to express concerns about the Blacktail major subdivision. Just like Mr. Kriskovich said, nitrates are a big deal in this area. Our house is just on par with Kriskovich's land, and the house next door is on par with nitrate levels. And one big concern of ours is water availability. When we water our grass, we use shower, toilet, whatever it may be, water, anything. We lose pressure in our well. Our wellhead increases, which means that the water level decreases throughout the year. So we have to watch how we water. And we know we are tied into other neighbors' wells as well. Across the street, kitty corner from us, gentleman and a gal named Elmer and Ramona, anytime their well has issues, we have sediment that backs up into our faucets, backs up into our well, our little filter on our spigot. And one other thing that is a concern, like Mrs. Kriskovich said, is the health. I have already put in a form to DEQ about risk analysis. What's the risk of drinking this water, bathing in this water, using this water in any capacity, whether it's skin, ingestion, whatever it may be? What does it do over a short period of time, long period of time? And, is that deadly? Does it, decrease lifespan? What does it do? And in our area, the surface to our fractured bedrock is only 20 feet. So when we get surface recharge water, it does not give the nitrates enough surface area to dilute. So when it circulates, it comes back up even higher in concentration. And as Mr. Krivich said, it's above critical water level or concentration level. And if the septics that are being put out are coming, the effluence comes out at a 4, if that doesn't have enough room, what does it do? Keeps raising that concentration level. It might come out at a 4, but once it circulates, 3, 4, 5 times, whatever it may be, 5, 6, 7, 8 milligrams per liter, it's right back up above that 7.5 benchmark. And then, sooner or later, above the 10, we're back at 15, like Mr. Kriskovich said, and that is a huge concern of mine. I've studied in hydrogeology, environmental engineering, pollution prevention, sustainability, and reclamation for a decade. And this is one huge concern, and I don't want anyone out there to feel uneasy about this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Are there any other opponents? Please come forward. There you go. Turned red. There you go.
Chief Executive, Commissioners, my name is Matt Chatchin. I live at 111 Larkspur. And I'm not going to say anything that you haven't already heard from everybody else. I'm just going to give you what I know. I'm probably the dumbest guy in the room when it comes to these septic systems and nitrates. So years back when the Blums had a piece of property out there for sale, it was originally in the Warren Heights subdivision. I tried buying it and was looking into putting in a well and putting in a septic system. And really quickly, I was pointed at SepticNet. Great. I'm not here to bash their system whatsoever. It's a great system. I think that if they can get that system and sell it and put it in, that's great. Their system's releasing whatever effluent they have at whatever nitrate level it is, does not protect the people they're going to put 11 more houses in from the nitrates that are already in the water, from all the other houses that are at Warren Heights. We all live there and are dealing with it. We have these tests going on. We see these nitrates. And it scares the hell out of all of us, especially with raising young kids. Everybody across all of the subdivision has different levels at where their wells are drilled. Some are at 100 feet, some are at 500 feet, some are at 200 feet. So the aquifer is very unpredictable, right? The well I think that they just drilled out there, from what I hear, and I don't know this to be a fact, is 600 plus feet. What's going to protect the people that are going to put in 11 brand new subdivision houses out there from the high nitrates, but themselves? Them putting in their system may reduce the nitrates that we have in ours. We don't know that. I don't know that. And there's no guarantees that they could do that. I know the system that SepticNet put in has some great track records, but they can't guarantee those won't fail. What do they do when they fail? I don't know. And I'm not here to speak illy of the system that they're going to put in. But my concern is the nitrates. The water is also a concern. If I don't have any water, what am I going to do? Can't take a shower, can't wash my clothes. Am I going to drill another well? So we have that happening in the subdivision now. There's people with 4 wells on their property. 3 of them are dried up. So I urge that that we look this thing over. We cross our I's, or our T's and dot our I's, and make sure that we're not putting in something here that's just going to make it worse in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chatron. Do we have any other opponents? Seeing none, I'll have a second call for opponents. Third and final call for opponents. This closes the public hearing. Thank you all for being here tonight. Moving on to bid openings, we have one. County Attorney Joyce, do we have proof of publication?
Mr. Chief Executive, we do have proof of publication. It does appear to be in order.
Thank you, County Attorney Joyce. I think we have, I take it back, we have 2 tonight, and first one's Jim Keenan. Oh, you're doing it for him? Okay, I thought he was out here, so, all right. Communication number 2023-234, Jim Keenan, Water Plant Superintendent, requesting Council of Commissioners concurrence to schedule a bid opening for May 17th, 2023 for supplying, I'm sure you guys want me to say this, orthophosphate corrosion inhibitor to be used at the Butte-Silver water treatment plant. Director Neri.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioners. It looks like we have 4 bids. The first one is from Univar out of Kent, Washington. Chief Executive Gallagher, there's a note in here. It's unfortunately we're not able to bid on your requirements at this time. So
It was nice of them to send us a note.
okay. The second bid is from Caris Chemical out of Peru, Illinois.
Mr. Chief Executive, there is a bid bond from a licensed surety company in the amount of 10% that does appear to be in order.
Thank you, County Attorney Joyce.
Chief Executive Gallagher, the price on this is $1.38 a pound with a total of $157,320.
Can you?
$157,320.
$157,320.
The third bid is from Shannon Chemical out of Exton, Pennsylvania.
Mr. Chief Executive, there is a bid bond from a licensed surety company in the amount of 10% that appears to be in order.
Thank you, County Attorney Joyce.
Chief Executive Gallagher, the price is $1.53 a pound for a total of $174,420. $174,420.
$174,420.
Yep. And the final bid is from Hawkins in Roseville, Minnesota.
And Mr. Chief Executive, there is a bid bond in the amount of 10% from a licensed surety company that appears to be in order.
Thank you, County Attorney Joyce.
Chief Executive Gallagher, the total price on this is 95 cents a pound for $111,442.50. $111,442.50.
That's $111,442.50. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move to refer this back to the Public Works Department for recommendation back to this body.
We have a motion and a second to send back to the Public Works. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? Okay. And I think we just, Commissioner Walker, there we go. And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
10 yea, 0 nay.
10 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving on to, we got presentation that you gotta come back up here for. We have one communication number 2023-235, Mark Neary, Public Works Director, requesting Council of Commissioners for time on the May 17th, 2023 for the countywide maintenance district work plan update for fiscal year 2023 and the work plan for fiscal year 2024. Director Neary, no envelopes open.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Commissioners, for the record, I'm Mark Neary, Public Works Director. And in August of 2018, the Commissioners voted to have one single maintenance district, and with this ordinance, I'm the lucky guy that gives a presentation every year by the end of June. So this will be on what we did, our work in 22-23, and what we're forecasted to do in 23-24. So we'll start out with our snow removal routes. We have 3. One's our primary. That's this one in the orange. Green is secondary, and then the blue here are the routes that are maintained by MDT. And how we do our snow removal is we start with the primary, hit secondary, and then we actually do go into neighborhoods if we can. But if it starts snowing again, we head right back to the primary and the secondary routes first. Last winter, we used 714 tons of salt, 3,000 tons of liquid de-icer. The total cost on the salt and de-ice was $487,362. With our labor and equipment, everything combined, the total cost was $735,833.07. The street sweeping and flushing, we end up with about the same amount roads. You know, we just kind of calculate them as the ones we sweep and flush. The total labor is $178,667, and the total equipment was just under $80,000. The potholes that we did last year from July till I think it was the end of April was 12,806, but that number up at the top was what we have filled since January 1st to April 30th, and it was just about 6,000. And that would have been more, but as everybody knows, the rain and snow kept coming, and we can't do them when they're full of water. But we have done quite a few since January, and that's one nice thing about it's not a perfect fix, the Durapatcher for sure, but it's something that we can do year-round if we can, so it does help. This sheet here just kind of shows what we've done pothole patching since 2016, since we started keeping track of it. The rural maintenance, just taking care of our gravel roads in the rural districts. We had total labor of $14,000 and equipment costs were right around $6,000. So for our total cost last year was $1.2 million, just a little over $1.2 million. This year we plan on plowing the primary and tertiary routes and neighborhoods when we can. We're using lots of de-icer and sand. The estimated de-icer and salt is right around $400,000. 57,000 planned in overtime for snow removal. Estimated labor cost is just under $300,000. Total equipment cost $136,462. The 285 miles of roads to be swept, 90 miles of roads to be flushed. Estimated labor cost of $303. Estimated equipment cost is $140. The proposed summer work plan, $80,000 for asphalt for pothole repairs. Labor costs around $155,000. Estimated equipment costs were just under $72,000. For our rural roads, we're around $24,000 in labor and just under $12,000 with equipment costs. So our forecast is 1.624, just under 1.625. The street maintenance fees are assessed by parcel now. there's a communication to the council about switching it to units. And street maintenance fees are assessed to commercial and residential properties on each parcel with a market value of $5,000 or greater. If we go to the units, it'll be units, not vacant properties anymore. This right here is how we do it right now. We have 18,057 parcels. We come up with 1.583779, and that's at 87.71 per parcel. If we go to units, we have 18,425. That'd be an additional 368 units. That'd come out at the 8771 to 1.616056. So it'd be an increase, or it'd be a greater value of just under $33,000. If we would have done the units last year at the same fee, we would have had 18,242, which would have been 232 more than the parcels at $5,000 or greater, which we would have had an additional $20,348. The current revenue generated from the street maintenance assets, I showed that would be 1.583779. If we went to the unit, it'd come out about 1.6 with the increase of 32,000. These jobs here are just jobs. This one is, I think I opened the bid here in a couple weeks on this one. This will be the mill fill. It'll go out to contractors to do like we did up on the west side and in Central Butte. These are some of the roads that we're gonna do. And the only reason I'm showing these is because we're not robbing from our road fund anymore to do the maintenance, because we have, we feel that we get enough money out of the maintenance fund to do the sweeping, flushing, snow plowing, sanding. And that's it. Open for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Director Neary. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher, and thank you, Director Neary. I've seen you, this is probably your fourth one, and your PowerPoint skills get better every year. You're thoroughly impressed. So thank you for that. So right now it looks like with the way things are going, we get a little bit more money if we were to switch it from parcel to unit. It seems like maybe we can say, would you feel comfortable saying $10,000 more a year?
Roughly.
Commissioner Frederickson, Director Neary.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Frederickson, I'd say roughly yes.
Okay. Yeah, follow up, please.
Okay. Follow up,
And,
Commissioner Frederickson.
Yeah, thanks. And as far as, so you listed the roads that we're able to do under the maintenance plan, which is just the mill and fill. And I just want you to clarify that there's also a whole nother set of roads within the not road maintenance that it's budgeted, correct?
Commissioner Frederickson, Director Neary.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Frederickson, no, I stated those, I put those roads up there to show what we're doing. That does not come out of the maintenance.
Oh, okay.
Maintenance district is strictly for patching, plowing, flushing, sweeping, sanding. It's just the maintenance. But before, we never had the money. Before, the commission brought this one value that everybody pays on, equal assessment.
Director Neary. Commissioner Frederickson.
Yeah, thank you. This will be my last one. But yeah, thank you for the clarification. Sorry to screw that. I always screw that up. But I guess what my question was, there's still a whole nother set of roads that wasn't on that list that are going to be done at some point over the summer, correct?
Commissioner Frederickson, Director Neary.
The Millfield project, Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Frederickson, the Millfield project, we will go out to bid and a contractor will do it. The roads that we will do, we'll follow the water company, the areas where they're going to be in doing that, and then any other roads that we will be able to do. We have a whole list of roads that we need to get done, and we just kind of chip them off as we can, but it's kind of time. We paved in front of McKenzie River where those sinkholes were. We fixed those sinkholes because that road is on the Millfield project, so we didn't want to have, if you pay, your top will look like your bottom. is how it works with asphalt. And then we did a thing over by, on Paxson and Longfellow by Yates Body Shop. And that area, we're lacking storm infrastructure in there, but it was an area, the road was destroyed. So we had to do a fix on that intersection there. So it'll be jobs like that that we'll do. But we do have Western Avenue as one that Butte-Silver Bow would do. We do have a list of roads that we will do, but it's not with the monies generated here.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Director Neary.
Thank you for the clarification. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Callahan, and then we'll go to Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Mark, I don't know if this is the proper time to ask, but, you know, Civic Center Road's gonna be completely new curbs, gutters, lights, everything, but they're only doing from the Civic Center east. The side of the Civic Center is a disaster, and you don't have that on your list this year. Is there any chance that we could get that in there? It'd be a shame to have that part of the road such a mess and the other part brand new.
Commissioner Callahan, Director Neary.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Callahan, we have that whole north side parking lot we have designed. It just needs money. But it is in our intent to try and get that whole road. You're right, but it's not just repaving. You know, that whole thing there, we have zero storm infrastructure in the parking lot itself, but we are looking at all of that, and we're going to try and get that done. I agree that we don't want to come off of that real nice road and then hit that bad part.
Thank you. Follow up, Commissioner
My
Callahan.
concern is that could be a number of years down the road before we do the whole thing.
Commissioner Callahan, I can speak to that. I think we're working on some funding sources to try to make that a high priority. And, you know, we know that the impact of some of the things that could be happening within Butte-Silver Bow, and, you know, and we don't have any concrete movement on where we're going to go on some different projects and things like that, but there may be some opportunities there to come up with some funding that will help with that.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Thank you, Mark, for being here tonight. This time of year is tough. You know what I'm going to ask. The thing I probably hear most is about the potholes. How many people do you got out doing the potholes, you know, this time of year?
Commissioner Sorge, Director Neary.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Sorge, we have 2 Durapatchers, and there's 2 guys on each truck.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I was wondering, we'll test your skills if you can go back to that picture where you had the streets that you were going to do, please. Yeah, there you go. I just want to kind of, you know, I like how you are concentrating and planning in the main areas and fish on the hill, you know, covering up in that North Park, 2nd Street, Utah Avenue, you know, starting to get the avenues up toward uptown and all that. So that's pretty well planned. You cut yourself short. You should have left it up there for a while, huh? Yeah. But I mean, I noticed the improvement on Mercury Street. That's looking good and everything like that. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reardon. Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Thank you, Mr. Neary, for your time. And just wanted to clarify that this question kind of for everyone on the where are we at in the process of going to the units? Is that at the end of this budget cycle? Somebody help me on that one, please. Maybe Chief Executive.
Commissioner
When do we get a vote on that? Thank you.
So I don't have that answer right now, but we'll get you that information. How does that work? Okay, follow up, Commissioner O'Neill.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Chief Executive. The other street, I've not seen it. Maybe it was 15. It was A Street. I'm not sure if that's, just thank you for that. Appreciate it.
All right. Director Gleason, maybe you can help us with that
Yep.
first question.
Yep.
Commissioner
Chief
O'Neill.
Executive Gallagher, Commissioner O'Neill, Commissioners. So if you recall, you have already passed a communication to move forward with the recommendation to move to units. That communication was presented by Commissioner Frederickson. You wanted us to present this plan with these numbers, so to move before you moved on to the public hearing processes and the resolution changes that will have to take place. Because the change now is in resolution, the method, so we'll be introducing that resolution holding that resolution in judiciary, setting a public hearing, so that there can be more public comment. I think you wanted additional public comment on the process of changing. And then once that public comment is heard, then you can move forward with whichever method you choose and the rate you choose within that resolution.
Thank you, Director Gleason, for keeping us up to date and on track of where we're at. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Director Gleason, you might want to stand by here. I see that it's $32,000 increase, and the time and effort we went through to get the last one, I'm not sure at this time that it's worth the effort to go through the resolution, the ordinance, the public hearing, because the public hearing on this was rather interesting when we done it in 2018, and I'm afraid we're going to have a lot of input again, and I'm just wondering if, you know, we'll be deciding at a future date. But in your opinion, both Director Neary and Director Gleason, the $32,000, does it outweigh we're going to have to go through to make the change in the resolution? Thank you.
Commissioner Fisher, Director Gleason.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioners, I think our duty is to present the work to you, show you the different options that you have available to you. I will say that the last round was a lot different because we were introducing a whole new structure. We were repealing 4 maintenance districts. We were introducing a new ordinance and then requiring the resolution in this work plan. And really starting from scratch. So now we're there, and then we did make changes throughout the last few years with the help of the county attorney that it's no longer an ordinance change, it's now a resolution change. So every year you're addressing this. So every year when we're going through the budget process, you're looking at the rate and you're looking at the method of assessment. It's not having to go through an ordinance change, but we're just stepping it ahead a little bit instead of doing all this in August, because if we are moving to a different method, as we have kind of already made that first initial step, it does take a lot of time and effort in our department and in the assessor's department to change the parcel from parcel to units. And so we just need that time before tax bills need to be generated to make that move. As far as equity and listening to the public comment, that gets to be your decision. We just give you the numbers.
Thank you, Director Gleason. I guess the terminology is the juice worth the squeeze, right? Right? Yeah. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I guess there's no possibility by reopening this that we would have any chance at all where we could lose all funding for a road maintenance district.
Commissioner Fisher, do you want to answer this?
Chief
Director
Executive Gallagher,
Gleason?
I think County Attorney Joyce can answer this with me as well, but there's no, I mean, that's up to this body, whether you change the method, reduce, you'd be basically repealing the whole resolution that's already in place today and not having a district at all and not having a maintenance assessment. It's not by vote of the people, it's by action that this body took to implement. And so I think I might address your question, but anything else would have to defer to County Attorney Joyce.
It looks like she agrees. Thank you. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Mark, can you go back to that slide? I think it was rural roads, or Director Neary, sorry. The rural roads and how much you spent.
Here you go.
So this is roughly, what, if my math is correct, $33,000 extra. So if we, this costs $33,000, right? And if we have an extra $32,000, we could potentially improve more of these rural roads. Or, I mean,
Commissioner Frederickson, Director Neary.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Frederickson, that's the money that we need to do the roads. We do all the roads. This is for all the roads. I mean, could it maybe improve them a little better? But the problem with it is Dan lives on one of them, and he doesn't see them very often. I mean, they try and get up there, and they're the same guys that are taking care of the roads. They're doing the mill fill. They're doing, in the millings projects. They're doing it all. So we can't have somebody out there all the time. So we figured that this $32,000 does cover it.
Commissioner Frederickson,
Yeah,
follow
no,
up.
I think where I'm going with this is you would find a use for an extra $32,000 to get Dan's Road maintained a little bit more, correct?
Commissioner Frederickson, Director Neary. Director Gleason.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Frederickson, if you go to the work plan, the 24 work plan, that's only, but it's that $1.6 million there is funding 99% of the budget that he's anticipated spending without any inflation added over the years. So that's trying to maintain the $87.71, again, still, funding this current work plan at 99% at existing budget levels, not only did we have a more significant winter this year and use a lot of the additional maintenance and supplies and manpower and everything in this budget, we did have to dip into the other road budget you were talking about to pull out materials and manpower. And then also what happens within this fund, you'll see a large, like the equipment charges are $360,000 there. That could be, we use FEMA rates. So this fund itself cannot buy equipment. It can only be used for the manpower and the supplies. So what we have to do is charge this district equipment rates. So then we can turn around and put the money back into the road fund to buy the equipment to use on here. The problem is here, $360,000 is only getting us through March of every year with equipment rates. And so, you know, we could definitely beef up this budget a lot more. But I think your direction originally to us was maintain same levels, and so we're trying to maintain that same level. So quite frankly, $32,000 probably isn't even enough. We would rather see another $300,000 in this budget, but that would cause a rate increase based on the number of units that we're seeing today. Anticipating that if we go units, we are going to have growth, like Mark said, and we're going to have additional units becoming online to help us offset the costs, and then shifting the money again back over, and hopefully inflation will level out and we'll start seeing de-icer and all those supplies drop down again. So
Okay.
I hope that kind of helps a
It
little
did.
more, but
Thank you.
32,000 helps, but
Okay.
Thank you,
Nice.
Director Gleason. Any other questions of the commissioners? Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. So when we initiated this plan, we were increasing every year, and then we stalled increasing. So right now at the time, we should be at 100% rather than $87. We should be higher because we did, I think it was COVID or something, we didn't increase every year. So the thing was, we were supposed to be 100% funded over 5 years on this. That would have covered the $32,000 that you're talking about right now. So another thing is this road maintenance is road maintenance fee. It's not construction and doing other things. This is a separate fund that is used only for certain things that can be used for. And I think sometimes when we get a little bit of money somewhere, we think, well, let's use it for like rural roads, or let's use it for that. Well, sometimes where you want to put the money, the net will tell you, you can't. Thank you.
Commissioner Fisher, you're exactly right. I think there is confusion of sometimes where the road maintenance fee goes, in that it paves streets and does those things, and it's really strictly a maintenance fee that everybody's charged and throughout the county. Yeah. Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Just to, not trying to beat a dead horse here, but the way I see the going to the units and not is future, right? I know that 32,000 isn't that much money, but we need more money everybody wants the roads maintained, and it costs money, so I feel like that's a fair assessment for people. You know, the fair is on Sunday, right? But it's fair, it's more fair, if you will, than what we're currently doing now, and I see a future with that increase. If we put the 32 or put the units, and then we could at some point look at increasing the 87 up, obviously. I mean, regardless, nobody wants to pay more, but if we want more done, we need to pay more. So, I don't know, that's my 2 cents. Thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Neill. Any other comment? Seeing none? Thank you, Director Neary. Thank you, Director Gleason, for your help in the present, oh, and Director Neary,
Chief
before we
Executive
close
Gallagher,
up.
too, I forgot to thank all my helpers too. Jennifer Kearns and Angie Mulligan put a lot of time in figuring out all this and the cost for the de-icer and everything. And then Danette and Karen Hassler put their keen eyes on it to make sure that everything was right. But I want to thank them. They put in a lot of work for it. Thank you.
So Director Neary, you're not taking credit for the PowerPoint presentation tonight?
No, just executing it.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you. All right. Moving on to Section 2 consent agenda, A 1 through 4 and B 1 through 27 with the exclusion of item number 25. Do we have any friendly amendments or segregations? Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I want to segregate number 2023, number 257, please.
Do you know what number was that?
Number 4.
Number 4? Okay, thank you. That's communication number 2023-257. Any other segregations? Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I'm sure you're happy to have me back. I want to segregate communication number 3, 2023-256.
Okay, that is number 3, communication number 2023-256.
Number 13, 2023-266. And number 14, 2023-267. Thank you.
Yes, so that's items 13 and 14, communication number 2023-266 and communication number 2023-267. Any other friendly amendments or segregations? Seeing none, Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move to approve Section 2 of the consent agenda, A 1 through 4 and B 1 through 27, with the exception of 25, which we already acted upon, and 3, communication 2023-256, 4, communication 2023-257, 13, communication 2023-266, 14, communication 2023-267.
We have a motion and a second to approve tonight's consent agenda. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
10 yea, 0 nay.
10 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving on to item number 3, communication number 2023-256, Kristen Rosa, Tippett Administration, requesting Council Commissioners authorization to have Chief Executive Gallagher sign an amendment to the Memorandum of Understanding with the Stace McGee Group. Do we have Ms. Rosa? Commissioner Fisher, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Thank you, Kristen, for being here. As I read through this, we've dealt a lot through the last couple of years with Stace McGee. And now it appears to me that we want to do a housing strategy, a study, with a grant. Just explain a little bit to me what's going on here in layman's terms.
Commissioner Fisher, Ms. Rosa.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Fisher, Commissioners. So Stace McGee came to us and wants to do the modular housing development. We gave him an infrastructure grant, but we clarified that that infrastructure grant was not tax increment dollars. Our district, we've been very diligent about it, and we created funds that were not considered tax increment dollars. So that infrastructure grant we gave them, they came to us and said, we need to make sure that we can get employees and that we have somewhere for employees to live when we do get them to come to Butte. So they want to assist with doing a more in-depth housing, well, I shouldn't say, it piggybacks on that housing study that is being done by Community Development now. This study will be more actionable. It'll be, how do we set up community land trusts? Where can we set up community land trusts? Where can we put some of these houses? And so that is what we're looking to do. It is a 50-50 matching grant, so the Stace McGee Group, for every dollar that we expend out of that grant, they are matching it with $1.
Thank you, Director, Ms. Rosa. Commissioner Fisher, follow up.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. So am I correct in reading that it could be up to $100,000 in reimbursement?
Correct. Chief
Yeah,
Executive.
Commissioner Fisher, Ms. Rosa.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Fisher, yes, it is up to $100,000 in matching funds. So the study could be $200,000 total.
Follow Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Thank you once again. I'm just trying to figure out in my head some of this reading I get a little confused about. So anyhow, and then it says up here something about $1 million grant, 900,000. So that 100,000 must be coming out of the $1 million to develop for construction of infrastructure, including site preparation, excavating, parking lots, and utility tie-ins? That's what it says in there.
Commissioner Fisher, Ms. Rosa.
I'm going to try not to jump in front of him. Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Fisher, correct. That infrastructure grant was approved by the TIFID board and this body in June of 2022. And so we are now amending that to be, we're not increasing the grant, we're taking $100,000 out of that infrastructure grant and putting it towards a housing study.
Commissioner Fisher, follow up.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Thank you, Kristen. So at this time, I would make a motion to concur and place on file Communication 2023-256. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second to concur and place on file communication number 2023-256. Is there anything else on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
10 yea, 0 nay.
10 yea, 0 nay. Motion passes. Motion passes. Moving on to item number 4, communication number 2023-257. Amanda Hunter, attorney for Copper City Law, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to have Chief Executive Gallagher approve the Vigilante Rodeo and Saddle Club returning 2 pole barns to the city and county of Butte-Silver, which were previously transferred to the Rodeo Club pursuant to the council resolution number 18-19. Excuse me, and sign a bill of sale. Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, fellow commissioners. You know, I just kind of want to comment to this for a moment. You know, as part of the Fair Board in 2018, when these buildings were given to the vigilante or sold for $1 a piece or whatever they were, there was a lot of excitement and enthusiasm from a group of people. You know, we had an engineering study, a preliminary engineering done. We had a group of linemen that were going to help put the buildings up. We had our artist renditions done. You know, there's a lot of thoughts. You know, one building was going to be for an indoor auction, and the other one was going to be for youth events. It's just a lot of, and I guess I take responsibility for not keeping it in forefront and keeping the enthusiasm going. But I feel sad and I feel really bad that we couldn't come together as the groups couldn't come together to find take advantage of this opportunity. In my mind, this is a missed opportunity to grow that fairgrounds into what it should be. But saying that, I'm going to make the recommendation concurrent place on file.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have anything on the question? Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Just looking at the bill of sale, I'm curious if am I missing that there's not a price, or is there any monies that exchange hands in that?
Commissioner O'Neill, I don't know, did we do $1 on, I think we're doing a $1 sale like they did with us as well. I think it's just kind of a transfer back, but we have to have a purchase price, which they're asking for $1 on it. So we have Ms. Hunter here to speak. Since she's here, I'd like her to kind of speak for the Vigilante Rodeo grounds.
Yes, thank you, Chief Executive. And actually, in the bill of sale, I don't have a purchase price listed.
Okay.
Not $1, not anything like that. Basically, the consideration for this sale, we're essentially trying to return the pole barns back to Butte-Silver, and I guess I would say the consideration for that would be the county is offering to pick up the pole barns and transport them. So their efforts to get them moved and transported is the consideration for giving them back, because that's not something the Saddle Club has the means to do. We don't have the equipment to pick up and relocate these pole barns. So if the county's willing to do that for us, we're happy to return them. It is unfortunate, I will say that these, pole barns never kind of took off. They never got erected. That's too bad. It really is. The Saddle Club itself has not had the capabilities at any point in its existence to erect these structures. So it by itself, they never went up. At this point in time, given the size of the two pole barns, there's really no use for them for the Saddle Club itself. Essentially, we would need a third pole barn to make it basically, and put them together to make a big enough usable space for something that could be useful or valuable to the Saddle Club. So that's another reason the Saddle Club didn't go any further in trying to make these pole barns go up, because it doesn't really have a use for them. So we would rather them go back to the county, who it sounds like has plans to actually get them up, put good use to them, so that it's not a missed opportunity perhaps for somebody else.
Thank you, Ms. Hunter. And I'll expand on that a little bit. And we, as you know, we are looking at purchasing, or we are going to purchase National Guard Armory area. One of the things that we are lacking is covered space for our vehicles, equipment, things that is out in the weather and stuff. And so with the Superfund division, we're looking at potentially erecting those. And that's where we will take these to the National Guard Armory on the grounds down there and lay them down until such a time that we go out for bid to potentially have these erected out. So that's what the vision is. It's not concrete that's what we're doing yet, but that's kind of the vision of what we're doing. And so we can see a use for these. We didn't want them sitting there with no use, and with the agreement that the way it was lined out in the past, that it was to help facilitate the fair, and so they couldn't sell them because the lease that required them to be utilized for the fair would go with it as well, and so that piece went along with it. So we're working together with them to find a use for them for us locally here. So I hope that answers anyone's questions. All right, Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive. I guess I don't kind of like to hear potential use, future use. I mean, these have been sitting around for a lot of years. If we got a use for them, let's do it. Get something done. If not, let's put them on the state surplus sale and get rid of them. There's no sense the county holding on this property like this, setting it out there and then moving it back here and then moving it there. I mean, who knows what's left of them after been sitting this long. So I just hope you do have a plan, and that's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. I agree, but part of that is we really do need more. We're probably moving out of the Kelly warehouse. We've lost that covered space. So that potentially we need to have more covered space. So, all right. So we have a motion and a second. Is there anything else on the question? Could commissioners please vote? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
9 yea, 1 nay.
9 yea, 1 nay. Motion passes. Moving on to, let me see if I can have any dexterity in my hands here. Moving on to item number 13, communication number 2023-266. Karen Burns, Community Development Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to have Chief Executive Gallagher sign the development agreement provided by the Harrison Avenue South URD, HAS URD with Dealer Properties Butte GM LLC. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I realize the Harrison Avenue South URA district is a new development. We're starting to work on it, but a lot of this is in my district, District 6. And as you know, I have a property that I lease right across the street from the Butte GM store. And we've been waiting on Mr. Billion for quite a few years to get something done over there. And actually, the GM building at this time is a disgrace to our community out on South Harrison Avenue. The parking lot's all tore up. I'm sure General Motors isn't happy with them being there. And as you know, as I serve on the council, when no one shows up except for Kristen or Karen, and they're wanting to get $150,000 or $180,000, and they don't even have enough gal to show up here to tell us what they're gonna do with it. So, I mean, that bothers me, you know, and the reason I segregated this is because I'm not sure what the money's gonna be spent on. I think the URD is supposed to be infrastructure, and I'm not sure if paving his parking lot is infrastructure. I don't know if working inside his building is infrastructure. I mean, I know we gave the building down in Harrison $17,000. We gave Highway 55, but they went into Harrison Avenue, so I'm not certain that without more explanation, I can flow along with this. So at this time, I'm just going to let it lie and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Are there any other questions or? Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I think that, yes, there was some hidden questions in here. I think that we got to get better with these proposals that come up on the agenda to find out really where this money is being used. I agree with Commissioner Fisher that basically we have these outfits, let's use GM Corporation, that are selling a lot of automobiles and all that stuff, and come to the URA and these organizations. It's great to assist growth, but the money used has to be used correctly, and we have to be fair to everybody. And a lot of these proposals that come before us are very sparse, even if you look at the scenario below it and all that. And I agree with Commissioner Fisher and all that stuff, is that I get Harrison Avenue and all that stuff, but I think the URA and these other individual grants and all that should be explained with the context of the people that put in for them to be present when they're addressed on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reardon. Ms. Rosa, would you like to speak to that just a little bit?
So, Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Fortune, Reardon, Commissioner Fisher. So, understand these. We do expend the funds on things that are allowed in law by the tax increment financing section in Montana Code. So yes, this is for infrastructure, such as parking lots, stormwater, things like that. The reason we have advisory boards that these applicants have come to those advisory boards, and they are present at our advisory boards, and they do present their projects in more detail to those advisory boards. That is how we have conducted business for the past 15 years that I've been here, is that these advisory boards are appointed. They are there to be your eyes and ears. I don't think that any of these folks would have issues coming here and also talking about their projects, but we haven't had that be a requirement up to this point. If it is in the future, I'm sure we can work it out and make that work. Butte, I wasn't at this meeting, but the Butte GM, it looks like it's a $7 million project that they're proposing. So it is more than just the parking lot.
Thank you, Ms. Rosa. Commissioner Fortune. If you want to use your mic. Sorry.
I'm reading on the computer here.
Oh, okay.
So, this application on the description, it's pretty vague, but it basically says the project is to, I guess I'd say the money is being used for General Motors image compliance requirements. I mean, that doesn't seem like infrastructure.
Commissioner Fortune, Ms. Rosa, do you have, I don't have that.
So Chief Executive Gallagher,
Okay.
Commissioner Fortune, Pauline may have more of that information, but there is a much more detailed application, and I will let Pauline address some of that.
Thank you, Ms. Giacomino.
Okay, Chief Executive Gallagher and Commissioner Fortune. With these applications, our Harrison Avenue district, we don't really ask for a huge detailed application when they bring it in. We do ask for, you know, all their bids and their outlines, so I'm not sure what kind of packet you guys received, but we do ask for, you know, a detailed bid that breaks down everything that they're doing, and that is the most important part, so that our board, when the Harrison Avenue board meets and they approve these projects, they can see exactly what costs we are allowing to put into the calculated amount. And so the maximum amount for this phase is at the $150,000. And when we do these projects, the work has to be completed and paid for before we submit any reimbursements.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, and thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. The application is handwritten, and I mean, I don't have I can't even read what it says, but it says the project is construction of a new General Motors dealership to meet the General Motors image compliance requirement. The project also includes remodel and renovation of part of the existing structure. I mean, if anybody looks at this, and you took this to Dylan Pippinich's office tomorrow, this application, he'd hand it back to you. I mean, it's just, both of them are this way, both of these same ones. It looks like it's written by a third grader. I mean, to me, when we're gonna give out $150,000 for somebody and they're gonna pay us back after it's done, this is a form that I think is crazy, but I'm gonna let somebody else make a motion to concur and place on file, because I can't do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Any other questions from commissioners? Do we have anyone that would? Commissioner O'Neill.
So thank you. I just want to comment, in agreements to some of the information that we have, but also the whole idea for that money is for improving businesses in that area. I think we sometimes get in the weeds on facts, who it is and what kind of corporations they are and how much money they have. However, anybody in that district is allowed to put in for this money. So I guess in hope and trusting of the people that are on this board that they, are following what they can do per the laws and whatever. But it is for the embetterment of the properties, right? And again, if it's 150 grand, they're going in 7 million, and we see a big improvement. That is a positive thing. And I guess one thing I just want to really, it doesn't matter how much money you have in your pocket to put. You're not judged by if you have millions of dollars in the bank to put in for these. It's just for the project. So. I just hope that I'm making sense or anything. I just wanted to put that in the argument, if you will. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Neill. I think Ms. Rosa has some follow-up
Chief
here.
Executive Gallagher, commissioners, the applications aren't the biggest part of this process. They're a piece of paper that we need to have in place to start the process. These are relationships and communications that happen. And if you look at the development agreement is much more detailed about what is going to happen. And as Pauline stated, we pay based on Montana state law. There is certain things that we can pay on in Montana state law, and we only pay on those. And we do not pay until the project that work is done, and we pay on a reimbursement basis. So the county is very well protected, and we are following the state law for tax increment financing. But we spend a lot of time with these applicants to understand their projects so that we can then represent them to our advisory boards, and then our advisory boards can ask those questions and delve into these deeper. And I think a few of you are on these advisory boards and have an idea that we do discuss these in more detail at those meetings.
Thanks, Ms. Rosa. Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to concur and place on file communication number 2023-266.
We have a motion and a second to concur and place on file communication number 2023-266. Is there anything on the question? Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Under sources, I'm just going to go through this for a minute, and we will approve. Sources of funds committed. It says 4.7 million maximum. Equity, 2.3 million. Total project, 7 million 20, or just over 7 million. Then you go down to Hoffman's bid, 808,000. Then you go down to another one after that, and it says down the bottom here in yellow, total job cost base, $3,480,000. There's a hell of a lot of difference between $3.4 million and $7 million. I mean, and they're taking percentage, so I'm done arguing this thing, and I don't really want it, but I'm just saying, we're going into a new district. They done a great job out there at South Butte, at the Tiffin. Kristen and Karen, I think, do a great job for the county. What I'm saying here is, sometimes these numbers, to a man that's not as intelligent as most, when you got a $7 million project written in pencil, and then you got all kinds of letters that are typed in here of different amounts, and then you get down to the bottom, and there's $4 million difference. I mean, I'm not very educated, but there's something there that just don't fit, so, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Anything else on the question? Seeing none, could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
7 yea, 3 nay.
7 yea, 3 nay, motion passes. Moving on to item number 14, communication number 2023-267. Karen Burns, Community Development Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to have Chief Executive Gallagher sign the development agreement approved by the Harrison Avenue South URD HAS URD with SMT Holdings LLC. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher, once again. This has to do with the project, the old Safeway warehouse, and I think through the years, we've probably given them enough money to, years ago, probably build half a new warehouse, so that has nothing to do with it, but, you know, I've heard from people in the neighborhood that they would like to be guaranteed that the stormwater and runoff is taken care of, because out in that area, which I drive by every day, the stormwater is running into a sand drain, sand creek, or whatever they call it out there. And I don't know that ever, if the Safeway warehouse has had any kind of a storm water proposal or anything. So I just like to make sure that when we give this money to these kinds of people, and all due respect to Commissioner O'Neill, has nothing to do with the money they got or anything like that. I've never mentioned that. I don't mind giving the money. I think these are great ideas. I think they're great development for the community. All I'm asking is that we make sure they play by all the rules that they said they would. And in this same situation, some of the neighbors have called and said that stormwater's never been an issue out in that area. I know some people, friends of mine, wanted to build some warehouses there, storage units out there, and they were told that probably couldn't do it because of the stormwater issues, and the same way like when Western States went in out there by Murdoch. So I just want to make sure that the people are already there are treated fairly when these people get URA funds or URD funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Is there any other questions of commissioners? Commissioner Fortune.
I guess more of a comment, but as the neighboring property, I would hope that if they got this money, I've spent a lot of time there, but that property, with the amount of money that they've been given, ourselves, Biggers, and then more neighbors as you go north, always get flooded. I mean, there is zero stormwater improvements on that property, and I actually been educated today that this particular property has received almost $400,000 for improvements on that property, and it's probably cost the neighbors close to that and repairs to their property. So I don't think I could vote on this until we were assured, and the neighbors were assured, that the stormwater would be addressed with this money.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher, or I'm sorry. Fortune. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I'm just reading one of these parts of these applications, and maybe I'm misunderstanding, but there's a letter from Director Neary, I guess, about the stormwater, and it says that Pioneer, they performed the review of the engineering report, and it was released in November, and then it does meet Butte-Silver ordinances and standards as approved. Is that, I mean, am I just misunderstanding what these guys are saying, or could you touch on that a little bit more?
Thank you, Commissioner Thatcher. Director Neary.
Thank you. Sure. On the plan that they put in for this project? For SMT? Oh, it's right in front of me. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I guess I get so many stormwater projects, but this one here, I believe, I apologize for this. So I have these, so Pioneer turned this in, and it was, or Forrest J did it, and then Pioneer did the review, and then they approved it, and I signed this, but I'm sorry, I'm not up to, I mean, I'm basing everything that I do, a PE is signed, you know, we hire a PE to approve it, but I'm sorry about that, I kind of forgot about it.
Thank you, Director Neri. Commissioner Fortune.
I think all that, just to address Commissioner Thatcher, I think all that letter is just the stormwater design. It doesn't mean any of it's been implemented.
Thank you, Commissioner Fortune. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive. And all the work is done by WET, Water and Environmental Technologies. And this is another one that, in the application, it has crossed out in ink at the bottom, 554,262, and then it comes back, and I don't know if it says 567 or 367. Can't really read that's sources of funds. You know, and all of these, just like the last one we talked about, their payback isn't until like 2031. They pay $18,750 a year. You know, we're giving them this money, and they're paying us back like tiny increments. You know, and it just, we got to do a better job on these projects, I think so.
Commissioner Fisher. Ms.
Chief
Giacomino.
Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Fisher. These projects, they will not be paid out until the work is completed, permits are checked, inspections are done. So none of this on the development agreement, we will not start paying until everything's done and paid for. So if the stormwater is not done, as addressed in all these diagrams and everything, we won't be issuing out any of these yearly payments.
Thank you, Ms. Giacomino. Are there any other questions of commissioners? Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you, Chief Executive. The question I have is you talked about payments and all that stuff. So we have this project going that we're discussing right now. So what if the storm sewer isn't done? Do they just not pay on the storm sewer, or do they not pay in the same project? I mean, obviously there's problems all throughout that neighborhood, and here, like Fish says, here we go again. You know, I'm understanding somewhat, but the thing about it is that we're spot, we're here, then we're here, we're doing this for this one and all that, especially down in that area with the design being there, but still the money coming, is the URA going to give fundings to implement this storm sewer system, or where are we at here?
That is not part of the URA.
Sorry, just one second. Commissioner Reardon, Ms. Giacomino. No, you can answer.
Or you are
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Reardon. This isn't part of the URA district. It is strictly part of the Harrison Avenue district.
That's right.
So a lot of these projects, when I review them, I go and I check to make sure everything is done before I pay them out, before I request a reimbursement. So on this, you know, if the work isn't completed and it doesn't follow what we did the agreement based on, we're not going to reimburse them.
Thank you. Yeah,
Chief
Ms.
Executive
Rosen.
Gallagher, Commissioner Reardon, there is a design by WET for the stormwater. They will construct that. They will then ask for reimbursement. We will not, Butte-Silver Bow, the Harrison Avenue district, won't reimburse it until it's completed. And then because the Harrison Avenue district doesn't have excess amount of cash, What we do is enter into these development agreements. This $18,000 that you're seeing, that is a reimbursement by Butte-Silver Bow back to SMT Holdings. That is done on an annual basis. So they're not getting that as their $150,000 or whatever. That is not coming as a lump sum to them in this district. It will be on an annual basis that they will be reimbursed. I guess to speak to the stormwater, they are looking to improve their site based on future development, verifying, and now they are subject to stormwater because they are looking to change their development. They haven't been, they were, back when that warehouse was built, they weren't subject to stormwater. So now they're catching up with the ordinances that Butte-Silver Bow has in place.
Thanks, Ms. Rosa. Any other questions? Commissioner Fisher?
Thank you, Chief Executive. Got one more point, and Kristen, I think you made this, I just want to clarify. So, in this project, they're getting $113,475. So, we don't give them the $113,000. We pay them $15,000 in 23, $15,000, 24. Is that how it works? Or is that how they pay us?
Commissioner Fisher, Ms. Rosa?
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Fisher, that's how we pay them. What it looks like is because they're improving their property, the likelihood of the value of their property is going up. So we are tax increments. So as the value of the property goes up, we use that increment from the improved property to then reimburse them for the infrastructure developments that we can do based on state law. Does that help? Okay.
Commissioner Fortune?
So, just, you said that their stormwater hasn't been addressed because they're just improving it now. I mean, so what a quick search, you could find that they've received grant money for improvements on their project over the last 15 years. I mean, have they just ignored the stormwater? I mean, I know they have storage units that they just put in there within the last 2 years. Has that just been too bad?
Commissioner Fortune, and so I guess we'll bring up Director Pipinich.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Fortune. So they do have a stormwater plan for part of their property. A couple years ago, they put in some storage units. They have a pond. They have an O&M agreement. They had a bond for stormwater for those storage units that are up front on the road. The way the stormwater ordinance works is it's all about increase of impervious area. So if they weren't increasing impervious area, they weren't required to do a stormwater. So depending on what those improvements were, if it was already paved and they're doing something else, then you wouldn't need to do a stormwater plan. I just wanted to clarify that, you know, withholding the $15,000 a year or whatever, that's not the only hammer here. They need to get all their permits. They need to get a stormwater permit. They need to have an O&M agreement. They need to have a bond for the required stormwater infrastructure, you know, to ensure that those things are done. So the development itself needs to follow the permitting process like any other development would, whether they're getting money from the URD or not. We just also have that extra hammer of we won't pay you if you don't do it. But there's also, you know, permitting issues if you don't do it. So hope that clarifies some things.
Yeah, thank you, Director Pipinich. Commissioner Fortune, follow up.
Just one last comment, I guess, but I hope that when they do this, if they do get this grant money, that they address the stormwater of their neighbors. So, I mean, I don't know if anybody spent any time out there, but I mean, sometimes you need a boat to get in the back of the 4 businesses to the north. And I mean, they're, like it or not, their business is the cause of a lot of that. And I really hope that with this money, they'll consider their neighbors.
Thank you, Commissioner Fortune. Any other comment? Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. At this time, I will make a motion to concur and place on file communication number 2023-267.
We have a motion and a second to place communication number 2023-267 to concur and place on file. Is there anything else on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
7 yea, 3 nay.
7 yea, 3 nay, motion passes. Moving on to Section 3, ordinances and resolutions introduced for second reading. We have one Council Bill number 2023-03 and ordinance number 2023-03. Clerk, could you please read the caption?
An ordinance amending Chapter 15.10 of the Butte-Silver Municipal Code, Fire Code, specifically amending sections 15.10.010, 15.10.020, 15.10.060, 15.10.070, 15.10.080, and deleting sections 15.10.090, 15.10.100, 15.10.110, and providing an effective date herein.
Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move to place Council Bill number 2023-03, ordinance number 2023-03 on second reading and passed, having been deemed fully read at length.
We have a motion and a second placing Council Bill number 2023-03 and ordinance number 23-03 on second reading. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
10 yea, 0 nay.
10 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving to Section 4, ordinances and resolutions introduced for final reading. We have resolution number 2023-20. Clerk, please read the caption.
A resolution amending the City County of Butte-Silver Bow's fiscal year 2023 budget after conducting a public hearing at a regular scheduled meeting of the Council of Commissioners in accordance with Section 7-6-406 MCA, appropriating unanticipated revenues from Dickey's Foundation, Town Pump, and Northwestern Energy, and providing an effective date herein.
Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move to place resolution number 2023-20 on final reading and passed, having been deemed fully read at length.
We have a motion and a second placing resolution number 2023- reading. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
10 yea, 0 nay.
10 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving on to resolution number 2023-21. Clerk, please read the caption.
A resolution directing the Butte-Silver Land Records Department to mail a notice of pending tax issuance to the persons considered interested parties for each property for which there has been issued a tax lien certificates in accordance to the provisions of Section 15-18-212 MCA, further directing the treasurer to issue a tax deed for those parcels of property where there has been issued a tax lien certificate and the expiration date of the redemption period has expired and the required payments have not been made, and providing an effective date herein.
Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move to place resolution number 2023-21 on final reading and passed, having been deemed fully read at length.
I'm placing resolution number 2023-21 on final reading. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
10 yea, 0 nay.
10 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Motion passes. Please note all the calendar and other meeting events, and then we will move to any public comment. I think we outlived any public comment that was going to come, so I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor, signal by aye. Oppose? We are adjourned. Thank you all.